Hello, and welcome to Higher Results, where business, workforce, and talent intersect. I'm Melodie Reagan, CEO of Eye to Eye Workforce, and your host. And today we have a very exciting topic. We're going to talk about the retention and the engagement of low-wage workers. Kind of an interesting topic within our society, and let me give you a little background on that. And I have a fantastic guest that I'm going to be introducing. Anyway, did you know that the median full-time wage and salary that a worker makes is $876 a week? And that is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, that relates to about $45,000 a year. Interestingly enough, in the last Census Bureau, we're saying that the median household income is $59,000. Now, how does that work between the worker and the household? Well, depending on the household, you have everywhere from 0.46 workers to almost 2 workers per household. So think about that for a second. You have 59,000, and you could have up to 2 workers that are creating that income. So consequently, according to Pew, interesting statistic is 53% of our workers feel financial duress. They feel stress at a financial level. Now, why do we all work? You have heard me say this many, many times as to what a job is. A job is our identity. A job is a way that we make money to live by. On top of that, it is our network and our community. So when I look at earning $59,000 a year, where does that money go? We make money to live. Interesting couple of statistics. One of the things that care.com is saying today is that for many workers who have children and need childcare, over 20% of their income is going to childcare. On top of that, if you start breaking it down, about 41% of income goes to your household. Believe it or not, what follows that is about 16% for transportation and about 14% for food. So we're talking about food and taking care of our complete household. So no wonder many of our workers feel stressed at a financial level. So what does that mean for employers? What does that mean with finding them, retaining them, and engaging our low-wage workers? Because here at the end of the day, let's be honest, if we could increase salaries, we'd do that. So it's really about salaries, but I also know 7 out of 10 businesses fail because of cash flow issues. There are quite a few businesses that are just making it. Their margins are so tight. So what are some of the options that we have as businesses to take care of our workers? And with that, I'm really thrilled to introduce you to Linda Montgomery. Linda is and she's the Director of Engagement Services with Work-Life Partnership. So welcome to the show today, Linda.
Good morning, Melodie. Thank you very much.
So I have a question for you. Share with us, just before we jump in, tell us a little bit about you and Work-Life Partnership.
I came to Work-Life Partnership to support a national expansion. Work-Life Partnership works through employers with frontline workers who, when they woke up this morning and started their car and it didn't turn over, they had a catastrophe. They struggle with, first of all, housing, childcare, which you mentioned, transportation on all levels, food, debt, and just the basics of living that we take for granted. Work-Life Partners engages with the employee, helps them navigate those situations so that they can be on the workforce and engaged in their work.
Fantastic. So Work-Life Partnership has a specialty in this area. And let's jump in and talk about what are some of the key issues. You've already listed them. What are some of the key issues that low-wage earners are facing and why? So give us a little more background on that.
Sure. It's easy and it's complex, Melodie, because if you're making, let's say, for example, $12 an hour, and you had a cash out event that cost you $500, a $500 break on your car, and maybe you'd been judicious enough to save that money. You're now at cash zero with an income of $12 an hour. Anything And I mean anything that happens after that, including a mistake. You made a purchase early in the month, and you've now created a cycle, a snowball, if you will, that's problematic. And so for you and I, if we wake up this morning and we have a transportation issue or our power goes out, we pick up the phone and our credit and our cash on hand handles it. But if you're at that $12 and you're deficient, you may wake up with a choice. You have to pick up your food stamps or go to work. And this morning you choose to feed your kid and you're now out of a job. Or the car doesn't start and you can't make it and you're now out of a job. Or, heaven forbid, you've taken a payday loan, which you took at 32%, rolled some interest over because they were very generous, pulled in a medical bill, and now you have a garnishment. And that $12 an hour, which you rely on to eat, is gone. These are the people that we serve, Melodie.
Fantastic. Well, tell me, when I look at that as far as the number of workers, when we think about median and all of the different industries, there are quite a few workers out there that are making $12 an hour.
Oh, yes.
So what does this mean for employers? How does this impact business, organizations, and employers?
Thank you. So our employers will sometimes say to me, Linda, these people just need to deal with their stuff. The things that are going on with them personally are not our problem. But here's where the rubber meets the road. An employee who can't show up is problematic. An employee who is on the factory floor, distracted because they're worried about the child that they left home alone who's only 3 years old, is a danger. And the fact of the matter is that the cost of turnover is high, and it's catastrophic in an environment where we're at about 2% unemployment. They must retain their workers if they're going to continue their business. We have clients in construction, we have clients in industry who cannot meet their orders, who are turning away customers because they don't have labor. And so labor has become, and has always been really, a precious commodity. And while we may not want to deal with childcare and housing and their problem is our problem, and it will not be solved internally. We cannot solve it alone. In fact, if we did, and we provided an employee, for example, with an apartment, we would be subject to a lawsuit for prejudicial behavior. Work-life partnership exists to do the things that an employer cannot do safely, to be unreasonably unfair in kindness and generosity, so that that worker shows up consistently and is engaged.
Fantastic. Well, I want to dig into what that is, but just to reinforce, the book Lean In, and it's all over the web. 43% of women are opting out or taking breaks, and we talk about going off for a period from work because of the issues that we're even facing with childcare, et cetera. So the point is, these are some issues. Yes, they affect the $12 an hour worker, but they're actually issues that affect all workers. Regardless, we have some very highly qualified women that are stepping away from the workforce just because they can't afford childcare. And here's the interesting thing about childcare. I actually went and I pulled this from the 2018 Employee Financial Wellness Survey by PwC, said that 54% of employees, as I've already said, stress their finances. But Caregot.com let me know that the average cost for childcare per week is $211. That's a lot. Think about that with the $876. Plus, after-school sitter costs are even more expensive, $242 a week. And you're looking at that's $1,000 a month. And that's over a week. That's over 25% if you're making $876. So it's affecting all workers. So
you name the game, Melodie. The number one predictor that a woman will be in poverty is she gave birth. And the reality is that she holds the primary responsibility for childcare. So You mentioned care.com.
Yeah.
In fact, we partner with care.com.
Oh, fantastic.
And we go door to door and find babysitters. So Aunt Margaret has a kid and she's babysitting. We make her the CEO of Margaret's Child Care. We bring in grant-funded bedding, safety, curriculum, food, etc. And she's now a CEO. She's a company. And because we know where she is and she's registered on care.com, fully insured and background checked at our expense, we can take the babies from our employers and put them safely in childcare where they could never afford it at the prices that you're quoting. And there they are. These moms are back at work, and they don't just look like factory workers. We do a lot of work with nurses, CNAs, hospitality workers in the upper ranks. Their kids are cared for, and they're at work.
So let's dig in. That's one example of one program. So what are some things that employers can do or make available to their workers? And, some of these have costs, some of these don't. Believe it or not, there's some pretty cool things that you can do to help your employees. So what are some ways that employers can support their workers? Share with me some of the services that you guys offer.
That's fair. Really two different questions. Employers can provide benefits. There's no question that has value, but benefits that are utilized effectively is the most important piece. So we do two things.
Yes.
We bring into employers a person that we call a navigator. A navigator is a social worker. We use the word navigator because a social worker is somebody who might take your children away. We're not in that world. Our navigator is like a best friend at work who happens to have a network of 75 different public, private, and civic resources to draw from. And so when they have the conversation with your employee, who they maybe meet at McDonald's, and learn that this employee is sleeping in their car, that they don't have enough to eat, or that their child is being inappropriately cared for, the first conversation is about what's possible. And from there, we take one step at a time. Typically, an employee who engages with us will engage with us 7 times. These problems do not have one layer. There are many layers. The employee can bring in work-life partnership. There's no question. Once that employee is stable, they can be upskilled. When we think about the possibility of upskilling, which is where most employers will go, they just need to give them some training, maybe spiff up the joint and have a party. There's a book called Scarcity that talks about when you focus on one thing. So as in our world, we might be thinking of a project, and then we look over our shoulder and go, oopsie, 3 things in our business fell apart. But our project ends. When what you're focused on is the rent, it doesn't go away. And so by stabilizing the ability to have a safe place to live, a way to feed our kids, we begin to be able to see a bigger world. When eyes open like that, you have an employee who's engaged, who could become a manager, an effective leader, or a more productive worker. And that's the other part of our business, which is upskill. We work on soft skills first, those skills that allow us to move from mopping the floor to engaging a customer. And then we work on the skills that are particular to the business in coordination with our community colleges. It's nothing but possibility, and it costs very little money for the employer.
By the way, when you brought up the navigator, this was one of them that actually came through with this study that I mentioned. Is a couple things is 20% of workers actually with PwC said that they would value help with understanding and using their employee benefits. So even though the benefits are there, they may not be using them because they don't understand. But here's the other one. On the PwC survey, over 25% of workers said one benefit that they would like is for somebody to give them financial advice, to help them understand what they can do with their money, et cetera. And I know Work-Life Partnership does that. How do I handle that I'm making $12 an hour and all the demands, and how do I get the most out of it? And a couple of things just for you as an employer, practically speaking. And obviously you can reach out to Work-Life Partnership. They help with childcare, but you can create your own childcare referral network. Now, pay attention to legalities with regard to this, but connecting your workers with childcare is helpful, or childcare centers that are nearby. Even finding something nearby and negotiating a corporate discount, you can make a difference. Help them understand their financials. Do you have someone in your network even that you could bring in and give them a talk? And it's exactly what you're saying as far as the upskill, helping depending on where you're at. I know in hospitality in Colorado, a lot of employers are helping to find housing or shared housing and things along those lines. So you have experts. Now, I want to dig into, there are certain things that you have to pay attention to at a legal level. Childcare happens to be one of them. And Linda and I were actually talking about, why is childcare so expensive? Believe it or not, most childcare workers make like $12 an hour, right?
A lot of them are our clients.
They are in that range. But yeah, childcare costs $211 a week. So why is childcare so expensive, Linda? And what can people do about it?
So there's really a couple of pieces that you covered in what you're just talking about, which is really, childcare is expensive because it's laden with a lot of laws. And based on what we're hearing in the press, it should be. Our kids need to be safe. But it's not, that money is not going to the child care workers. That said, there are some layers that you're talking about. The first layer was their benefits as an employee. Let's be fair. Benefits almost always in hospitality, in municipalities, in manufacturing and construction come with a cost to the employee. Most employees do not take the benefits that are offered. In some workplaces, there's enough support by the employer that they can. If I see 60% take or 70% take, that's excellent.
Yeah, it is.
So from the employer perspective, they can check that off their list. But the reality is we're talking about a lot of uninsured workers. So we bring in a benefits navigator, someone who is an expert at insurance, but also expert at the benefits that are available in the open workplace. If you're spending money on your benefits, you want to make sure you're getting traction. And if you have a worker who somehow you've managed to insure, and they're showing up in the emergency room because they don't have primary care, and they're not aware of what their network looks like, and they don't understand what a deductible is or maximum out of pocket or whatever. And when you did open enrollment, they shook their head like this when they meant this. You have created a problem by providing benefits. And so we bring in a navigator that helps them navigate the benefits, but also helps them understand who's in their network and what other resources in the community would help them to stay healthy, well, and mentally sound. From there, you talked about budgeting. And we're not really talking about the financial advisor that made sure that your nest egg was fine so that you could pass an inheritance to your children. This is a different reality. This is how do you make decisions about a limited amount of money that may vary based on the demand of the business. These people are not on salaries. If the business demand goes down, their wage goes down because they get less hours. And so they need to be able to think long run, shake other money trees. If they're a felon, that they have some resources. They also have a lot of limitations in terms of housing. If, for example, there's a handicapped in the household, or maybe there's a military background, or, those are all opportunities to provide resources. And there may be resources sitting right under their nose inside of their employer's benefits that they're not accessing. And that is the job of the health insurance navigator who partners with our social worker and makes sure that they open their eyes and see what's in front of them so that more can come in front of them.
By the way, it totally does. And one of the things that I know we give our workers a lot of information, but keeping up with everything today by yourself, it's intense. You have to keep your house running. You've got your job, just all the demands. You're barely getting enough sleep. So our workers don't slow down and read all the materials that we give them. is the fact. So having someone who can help them through that. A couple of other things that I think about that employers can do in this situation is consider flexible work schedules. Sometimes you can't, but if you have a single parent and they have children, we have, school hours are kind of awkward to a degree. When you have to get to work is when your child has to be at school and, your pickup. So one of the things that employers can do is they can help with flexible work hours. Healthcare. One of the other ones, having your lunch and learns, educating people on how to eat, in a healthy way, work out, even giving them some time. Some employers bring in individuals that can do, quite frankly, where they bring in yoga or other things along those lines. Not that you have to go that far, but sharing of information and supporting them is probably, in my opinion, one of the very first things that you can do to make a difference. The other one is flexible spending accounts. Some have them, some don't, but flexible spending accounts are a really simple thing that can be done that can help them, and it's the education. Now, the wonderful thing about an organization about work-life partnership is you put it all together so that you manage it for the employer.
Right.
So the employer doesn't have to come in and do the little bit here and there. So let's talk about, as an employer, I want to make these improvements. Where do I start?
Sure.
How do I do this?
So I want to make one comment on the FSAs.
Yeah.
It's helpful in terms of their benefits, in terms of healthcare. But in terms of managing a life that has a financial future, we do partner to create loans. And I don't want you to think mortgages. And we max out at $1,500, and we do microloans. And we do them at a level that a $12 an hour wage worker can repay it. By deduction, what we're doing is we're building a financial future. We build a credit score, and we build the possibility for the future as they get upskilled that they will be able to live a middle-class life, to be productive and create a future for their children.
Fantastic.
And the other thing we do is we bring in scholarship funds depending on the craft, the trade, so that they can then move into the future. So the way that you engage is we have a conversation, because frankly, Melodie, it's different for every workforce.
Yeah.
This week I'm working with one team that's a second chance team. Everyone has just come out of prison. Yeah, and that set of possibilities has opportunity in it, and it also has risks that we need to manage. Another group that I'm working with is a very civic-minded group that interfaces with a lot of volunteers and does a lot of work in the arts. Very different mindset. Very different set of risks, because they're in hospitality and they're customers. And so we need to sit down and have a conversation about what is your reality, and in truth, what does turnover look like? What does engagement look like? And what would you hope for your business in the future? And then we'll take it from there.
By the way, Linda, I've known you for years, and you're one of my dear, dear friends. That is one of your specialties. You are just so brilliant at listening and understanding and making sure whoever your clients are, that they get the service that they need. So I love that about you.
Thank you, Melodie.
Unfortunately, you guys, this is a topic we could go on and on about, but we are out of time. So I want to say, Linda, just as far as wrapping us up, what's your one bit of advice for employers with regard to low-wage workers?
Yeah. Believe that they're struggling, and understand it's not your fault, it's your opportunity. Have a great day.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. You know what? I'm going to tell you, if you miss a show, don't worry about it. We are online. We're at I Workforce /Higher Results. You can also catch us on the Higher Results YouTube page. And please join us again every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. We air on Facebook /Higher Results. Until next Tuesday, I'll see you on the internet. Thanks for being with us.